this is how I approach tone. It's my philosophy behind it. I hope you guys find it helpful in some way. If you have any questions at all, as always, please feel free to reach out. Always happy to help you. Pickups. I like lower output humbuckers because they give me the perfect combination of low noise, the push that I want, and the clarity that I need. And if you followed me for any length of time, you know that I'm a huge fan of Lambertone's pickups. Curtis and I have had a partnership for many years now, and my go-to set is a grinder in the bridge and a crema in the neck. I've played a lot of other pickups that I also think do a very good job at this lower output thing, and some of those would be Lawler El Rayos, Veritas Bearcats, and Veritas Popes. I like those pickups a lot as well. I run stereo, and I have for 7 or 8 years now. Stereo gives you a very wide sound, makes your wet effects sound enormous and very dramatic. So if you haven't tried it, I recommend that you at least try it. And if you do, you want to do a little bit of research. You have to understand that you're going to need 2 channels on the board, and the left channel is going to need to be panned hard left at the board, and the right channel will need to be panned hard right at the board. And if you're sound people know how to stereo pan, or if your board has the ability to stereo pan, then I recommend that they take advantage of that. That would be super helpful. You have to watch out for phase issues. This is a whole nother rabbit hole to go down, but it's worth a try, even if you just play stereo in your headphones, to understand the sensation that I'm referring to. If you do that, then I think you'll find that you'll end up running down the stereo path pretty fast. Here's one that a lot of people that I do consults for, and lessons over Skype and Zoom and FaceTime and such, when they're asking, how do I get over the tone hump? They're having a hard time with just transitioning, say, from blues or jazz into this style of music. They're normally neck pickup players, and they have a hard time understanding, or at least embracing, that the bridge pickup really is where it's at with this type of music. It's not the middle position, it's not the neck pickup, it's the bridge pickup. And that's going to be a new approach for a lot of people, but it is just the way it is. And you'll find yourself, once you embrace it, shaping your entire tone around the bridge pickup, which makes things a lot easier. All right, so next, you want to define the goal. So start by recognizing and defining your tonal goal. Does it lean toward balanced, or does it lean toward bright? And learn to listen to the tracks and in some way categorize what you're hearing. Does it belong in the balanced category? Does it belong in the bright? Or, does it lean toward the balanced category or lean toward the bright category? And so for some practical examples here, I lean on a balanced tone for Bethel style music, that like more ballady, washed out, meaty guitar tone. And I opt for a bit brighter tone when I'm playing Hillsong tunes or Elevation tunes or Phil Wickham in some aspects as well. Now the balanced tone, it's not muddy, it's not too bright, as you can probably expect. That's why it's called balanced. It breaks up nicely when you play your hardest. And for the best test on this, just rake an open G, open A, D, or E chord as hard as you can, and you'll hear, or not as hard as you can, but as hard as you are going to. So what's the hardest that I play? And it should break up quite a bit when you do that, and then back off and play the lightest that you'll play, and your tone should be as clean as you're going to need it to be. And that's that edge of breakup that you hear so much about. Now, the bright tone, fundamentally, it's the same from the breakup aspect. Tonally, you start with a balanced tone and then reduce bass and bump the treble up a touch. If it's still not glassy enough, you'll reduce mids a little bit. And this can be done with an EQ pedal or on your amp modeler, via MIDI or switching presets or what have you. It should be a tad too bright when you play hard, so when you give it that crang test, and the neck pickup should have a nice sizzle to it. That's when you know that you've accomplished that bright tone that I'm referring to. Hey everyone, just a quick pause to ask for your support. Currently 71% of the people who view this channel are not subscribed, and by subscribing you help support the channel, you help keep it going, but more importantly, it helps to get these videos in front of more people so they can hear the good news of Jesus Christ. So if you found value in these videos through the years, I ask that you please consider subscribing. So thank you for your support. It means more than you'll ever know. Now back to the video. Wet effects. When it comes to wet effects like delay and reverb, think about their purpose. Are they meant to stand out as a prominent feature of your overall sound, like in Bethel's recordings, for example? Or do they provide like a more subtle backdrop of space and texture as heard in Elevation's songs? I know Elevation does use occasionally, big exaggerated wet effects, but on the whole, their wet effects are much more subdued than the likes of Bethel. For delays, take the time to tailor your delay settings to each song, and customizing your sound in this way can make all the difference. I've done, again, a lot of consults over the years for folks who are just coming into the genre, and they have an analog delay pedal with no tap tempo, and they're trying to use the same delay setting for every single song, and it's just not going to get the job done. Delay is such a large part of this genre and the tones that we hear that you need to get into this mindset that your delays need to be programmed with the BPM of the song, and you have to choose the right tap division, the right subdivision of your delay as well. So is it quarter note, is it eighth note, is it dotted eighth, etc. So utilize tap tempo or delay programming to achieve delay tones that perfectly complement the song. Embracing this approach will help you create tones that perfectly complement the music rather than relying on a one-size-fits-all setting. And that one-size-fits-all setting is going to be the setting that in some songs it sounds great, but in some songs it's really fighting against you, and that's going to be frustrating. I have that asterisk there to, tip the hat to the Deluxe Memory Man users out there. There's a great Deluxe Memory Man tone, ish tone that a lot of us use that just provides like a bass. And that's also a great tone. Not right for everything, but it's not wrong either for a lot of stuff. For more straightforward non-ambient playing, I prefer using 3 different reverb settings. One offers a solid bass, another adds a bit more wash while still fitting within a regular playing context, and a third pushes toward ambient territory without fully crossing into it. I also like to have a swell reverb that can be accessed on the fly that's not a part of my already pre-constructed presets. When it comes to dry effects like compression, overdrive, and boost, I prefer to bookend my chain with boost, with the compressor acting as boost number 1. I also ensure that each pedal stands strong on its own. I don't rely on stacking drives to achieve my sound. The compressor, it evens things out, it adds sustain, and a dry blend is an absolute must. It also boosts the volume a touch, so it can push the light overdrive or the medium overdrive into more saturation if needed, and it also adds sustain. That's the function that it serves as the first boost in the bookending boost I mentioned. Light overdrive, so I want something that doesn't impact the natural amp tone too much. I hesitate to use the word transparent. I'm not a big fan of that word because by their very nature, overdrives do something to our tone. They change it. So by their very nature, they're not transparent. But in terms of impacting the EQ, I'd prefer it to remain intact as much as possible for my light overdrive. For a medium overdrive, this is going to be my big tone. And then this plus the compressor would be my huge tone. So I use the compressor to push the medium overdrive into further saturation. And a little bit of mid and treble boost is okay here for me. And over the years, I've learned that I lean toward a drive with a 2-band EQ here to help me shape that tone a bit more. And then we have the boost. The clean boost cuts bass, it adds treble, and boosts the volume. All right, we have our swirly, wobbly effects, modulation. This has become one of my favorite effect categories in recent years, and I normally lean on 4 types of modulation. The first is vibrato. So vibrato adds a nice movement, and it keeps things interesting. So vibrato actually messes with the pitch of your guitar signal. And with slow, shallow settings, it creates a textured sound, while faster speeds and deeper depth add a bit more drama. I usually stick to 2 main settings. One with shallow depth and low to medium speed for a subtle effect, and another with a deeper depth and a higher speed for when I really want to push my guitar sound in a different direction and make it not sound like a guitar at all. I also like to combine it with an octapedal occasionally and big washy reverbs for a unique tone that kind of is like synthesizer-like. Next is just your basic chorus. And I typically go for a shallow depth and low to medium speed. On the whole, I don't like this effect to be too drastic, but as always, there are no rules, so there are occasions when I like the effect to be drastic. Tremolo. I like trem in all shapes and sizes. I love the traditional conservative settings for chord and arpeggio work, so think like old school R&B songs. And I love that chop or helicopter trem setting. And the one that really expresses this for me is the intro to Mighty Warrior by Elevation Worship. It's got that like stuttered trem going on. And I also love a fast but shallow depth for raked chords and fills. So think of the Mighty Warrior trem, but decrease the depth so it's not so dramatic, and you get a really cool tone there. Lo-fi. This is one of my favorites over the last few years, and the Destroyer setting on the Strymon Mobius is what gets me there. And this gives you like a swirling modulation. It blends chorus and vibrato and other effects, and it results in a sound that's really unpredictable. So the modulation is not as predictable as a trem or vibrato where you know what's going to happen, and it's also lower fidelity. You have control over the level of signal degradation as well, so you can make it sound like a vintage 50s radio, or you can not have any degradation at all, and you can obviously adjust the speed and the depth of the effect as well. So when I want to subtly alter my tone without a drastic change, I turn to this lo-fi effect. It adds just enough drama to catch the ear, which I love, and I usually reserve it for cleanish sections rather than the big moments in a song. Signal chain. Here's the basics of how I order my signal chain. So compressor, we talked about how I use that as a little bit of a boost as well. Then I go octave. Then we have light overdrive with volume a little above unity gain. Medium overdrive with volume a little above the previous overdrive pedal. And then your boost with volume above everything else before it. Then we have a volume pedal. Now, if you are running a mono, delay, reverb, and modulation chain, so you can still run mono before all your stereo stuff, this is where the mono stuff is going to go. Or if you're just strictly running mono and no stereo at all, this is where your signal is going to end. So you'll see if running a mono signal chain, this is where the chain would insert into your amp. But if you're running stereo, then it keeps going into your stereo delay, and then your stereo reverb and your stereo modulation pedals. You go out left and then out right into your respective amp modelers. Well, I hope you found my philosophy helpful. If you have any questions at all, like I said, please feel free to reach out. Always happy to help you out. But as in every video, I always want to make a gospel presentation. So if you don't know the gospel of Jesus Christ, I would really love for you to stick around and just listen to the good news that gets us so amped up to serve every Sunday and has completely transformed our lives. I'm just going to read this for you. God is perfectly holy and just. In his righteousness, he cannot ignore sin. We, however, are not holy. We are sinners by nature. We have fallen short of God's glory. On our own, we cannot bridge this gap. The consequence of our sin is death, which means eternal separation from God. But God, in his great love, responded to our plight by sending his Son, Jesus Christ, to live a life of perfect obedience on our behalf. He was crucified, and as he hung on the cross dying, he bore the wrath of God that our sins deserved, so that those who trust in him would not have to. He died and he was buried. Yet Jesus, being fully God, conquered death and rose on the third day, securing our justification. To receive this gift of salvation, we must come before God, acknowledging our need for him and placing our faith in the finished work of Christ. In doing so, we are reconciled to God. We are brought into peace with him and adopted as his beloved children. From this place of grace, our calling is to share this good news with others, to live for his glory, and to find our deepest satisfaction in knowing him. Hey there, if this video or other videos on this channel have been helpful to you, I invite you to join guitarforhisglory.com. In addition to over 100 song tutorials and playthroughs, there's 6+ hours of training content designed specifically for the worship guitar player to help you serve the Lord with greater confidence and skill. And really, the end goal being that we think less about playing guitar, less about tone, and more on worshiping Christ. So I hope to see you over there. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.